So at Buddhi Clinic, we have a whole host of things that we can offer someone with a mental health condition. Okay. They come in, they have an assessment, we help them understand their biopsyche social. We then talk to them about what might help them. And medication, some accept, many don't. Psychotherapy, many accept, some don't. Brain stimulation, many youngsters are very keen to do it, many older people are not. So that's just interesting. Ayurveda and yoga, many older folks are very happy to do it. Youngsters are not as all embracing. So, in this sense, when we have a basket of about 15 things that can help people, we also give them the option of choice. We also give them the opportunity to decide, okay, I will take this. So, I had this young man who was so ill mentally that he would be found lying in front of the hospital one day, lying in front of the police station one day, and so on in his town. And his parents were at their wits' end. They were elderly and they didn't know what to do to help this man. And he refused to take medication. That was the conundrum. So when he came to me, I said to him, fine, you don't want to take medicine, but will you just do Ayurveda? And we have this procedure in Ayurveda called Shiro Abhyangam, which is a medicated oil massage for the head and neck. And he said, yes, I'll do Ayurveda. So he went on to do Ayurveda. And that's like a 21-day exercise that he's going through. Somewhere during the course of that, he came back to have a chat with me. And I said to him, I'll give you one medicine, will you take it? He said, yes, doc, one medicine I'll take. Because by that time, he'd calmed down. He started sleeping well. He was in a more equitable frame of mind. It was possible to engage him in that conversation, will you take medication? And I think that this is why an open mind helps, because for him, a medicine as the first solution was intrusive. I don't think talking to someone would have helped him because he was very far gone. But he was able to see Ayurveda as a solution. He was able to accept it as a solution. And I was delighted to see that it could do for him over 20 days what a medicine could probably do over a 10-day period or whatever, but it didn't matter because it made him better. At the end of the day, this was someone who went from being non-compliant to compliant.
Right. But it's not just about choices, right? You're also putting the power into my hands.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you can't be more right because, very often people talk about the placebo effect of treatments.
Yes.
And we have a lot of literature that is suggesting that about 40% of treatment effects are placebo effects. Okay? So we quibble about it. We are unhappy with it. I ask the contra question, why can't you be happy with it? If someone's getting better, how does it matter whether it's a placebo effect or a real effect? What matters is that it works. And I think that this is where I think we've become a little bit pseudoscientific in our approach to science itself. Right. That we are forgetting to see the humanism of it all. Because when I'm ill, what I want is to be well. I don't really care how. And I think that, of course, there's scope for a lot of charlatans to take advantage of that. But very honestly, systems like Ayurveda, systems like yoga, they have lasted centuries. Something that has lasted centuries can't be hocus pocus. There is a science behind it.
Yes.
In the same way, something like naturopathy, which comes from Europe, is now about 1.5 centuries old. So, in a sense, I feel that this whole kind of willingness to thrash something because I don't understand it, not very helpful, because I believe that harnessing the power of different types of treatment is what will do wonders for our patients. And if I'm a sufferer, that's what I want. I want people to offer me choices. I want to be given the empowerment to choose through knowledge.
Absolutely. Now, personality disorders are being increasingly talked about, and they're seen a great deal more in an intimate partner relationship, isn't it? How does one tackle a personality disorder? If somebody in my family I feel has one, I'm not sure, do I come to you? Do I bring the person to you? How does that work?
So the first thing, of course, is recognition. In general, mental health, it's very hard to recognize that this is what this person is struggling with. I had a wife and husband, with the husband having a mood disorder today, and the wife said, for years I didn't understand what was going on. I didn't realize it was a problem. I didn't realize we needed help. So we finally went to a professional maybe 6 or 7 years after it all started. So even generally with mental health, recognition is difficult. With personality, it's even more challenging because it gets interwoven into your life. And it doesn't necessarily follow predictable patterns that you will recognize. A mood disorder in some ways is easier to recognize. This is much harder. It's much more subliminal. It is there on a daily basis in some way or the other. Okay. So the first thing, of course, is to recognize a pattern, and that this pattern is not okay. Okay. And the one thing I say about personality disorders is, if a person is very difficult to live with, that is usually a giveaway of a personality disorder. Okay. That not just you, but other people also say, "Yeah, man, I mean, that's quite challenging, isn't it?" So that's usually a giveaway that this person may have if not a disorder, a trait accentuation of some kind, that some personality traits are very accentuated. It shows itself in either being very superficially charming, but actually very cruel. It can show itself in being hypersensitive and paranoid about a lot of things. It can show itself in being very impulsive, fluctuant, and reactive in so many ways for things that don't require a reaction. It can show itself in being attention seeking. So, a pattern of behavior that clearly is causing some discord, is causing some discomfort, is very likely to be a personality disorder or trait accentuation. We divide them into 3 clusters in clinical practice. So the one cluster is people who are paranoid, or they tend to be very withdrawn, or they tend to have very magical ideas about life. The one cluster are people who are what we call explosive impulsive personality disorders, where they're either very attention seeking, or they're very unpredictable, or they have tremendous loss of temper, which is way over the top, and so on. And the one cluster is the anxious, avoidant, dependent cluster. This is the least complained about and the least bothered about. The first two, one good way to describe it to yourself is, am I having to walk on eggshells around this person? Or is it like walking on eggshells when I'm around this person? And if that feeling is there persistently, that I am actually feeling like I'm walking on eggshells all the time, then obviously you're dealing with a difficult personality disorder or not.
Right. OCD, or obsessive compulsive disorder. Are you seeing a lot more after the pandemic, or is it just being diagnosed more after the pandemic?
I think obsessions are, of course, repeated intrusive thoughts that a person has, which the person recognizes are irrational. Compulsions are what they do to make those thoughts go away. That's the very simple explanation.
Right.
Obsessions tend to be checking obsessions, cleaning, dirt. I can be obsessed about dirt and cleanliness. I can be obsessed about having imagery about aggression, or imagery about, say, blasphemy, religious figures, things like that. The difference is, I'm not fantasizing about being aggressive, or I'm not feeling impulsive about wanting to be aggressive. I'm afraid I will be aggressive. So there is a difference. Where the person who's got an obsession is not happy having that obsession. They are not kind of lending themselves into that thought process. Now, what's happened with regard to, of course, cleaning especially, dirt and cleanliness as obsession and compulsion, is of course that somewhere the pandemic normalized it. You were expected to keep things clean. So I know a lot of people who've been washing their vegetables, ironing their newspapers, wiping everything down, and so on. People even said, don't blow a candle on the cake. Find out a way of putting off the candle on your birthday, and so on. So, in a sense, the environment of the pandemic lent itself to one becoming fairly obsessive. And I was thinking about this myself yesterday, because in the past, when I was alone in the car during the pandemic, if I went to a crowded traffic signal, I'll put on my mask. Okay, and I had the impulse to do it yesterday, and then I said, I don't really need to do this anymore, But so the point, therefore, is that there is that gray zone today because of the pandemic. But yes, it has affected people, and there are people in whom the latent obsessive compulsive trait has become very, very prominent post-pandemic. There are people with existing OCD who've got much worse also during the pandemic. All of this is true. So, in a sense, it's not an easy condition to be dealing with at this point in time. Is it more? Probably marginally so because of the environment and the circumstances, but in general, these have been around a long time. I think the one other thing is our ability to recognize mental health problems has significantly gone up during the pandemic. And that's resulting, and that's a good thing, it's resulting in help seeking. One of the things that mental health experts are bemoaning is that the facilities are not multiplying in order to help people. That's definitely a problem. But definitely people's recognition has gone up.